December 1944. Snow chokes the forests of Belgium. The quiet of a frozen European winter is shattered by the largest and most desperate German offensive of World War II. Waves of armored divisions crash into the thin American lines. Among them rolled the most feared tanks the Allies had ever faced, the Panzerkampfwagen Tiger II. The world knows them by another name, King Tigers. Heavier than anything the Americans had, armed with an 88mm cannon capable of killing Allied tanks before they could even fire back. And wrapped in armor that seemed almost invincible, the King Tiger was engineered for domination. Yet, in the bitter forests of the Ardennes, the Americans stopped them. This is the story of how, for the men of the U.S. First Army, December had been calm. To calm, High Command believed the Germans were finished, incapable of launching another large-scale attack. Troops considered the Ardennes a rest sector. They were wrong. Under the cover of darkness, German forces were massing infantry, artillery, and more than 300 tanks, including the dreaded King Tigers of SS Panzer Long 501. Before dawn on December 16th, a German artillery barrage, one of the largest of the war, came crashing down. Communication wires were cut, outposts destroyed. Confusion spread like wildfire. Through the smoke and chaos, dark shapes emerged on the roads. Heavily armored, angular, terrifying, King Tigers. American soldiers could only stare in disbelief as these monsters rolled through the fog. Their 88mm guns, shredding positions with ease. On paper, the King Tiger was unstoppable. Its front armor, up to 180mm thick, could shrug off almost any American round. Its long-barrel 88mm cannon could destroy a Sherman from over 2 kilometers away. For the Americans, facing one head-on was suicide. But they had something the Germans didn't expect: ingenuity, courage, time. The King Tiger was powerful, but heavy. Too heavy. Its massive weight made it slow, clumsy, and often completely dependent on narrow paved roads. American engineers quickly realized they could use terrain to their advantage. Small groups of infantry destroyed bridges, felled trees across roadways, and laid minefields. The goal wasn't always to destroy the tanks, but to funnel them into pre-planned kill zones or simply stop them in their tracks. A King Tiger stuck in the mud or halted by a collapsed bridge was a target, not a threat. One massive explosion could send a 70-ton tank plunging into a river, creating a bottleneck that paralyzed the entire column behind it. Artillery, not tanks, inflicted the majority of American damage during the early fighting. While the King Tiger's frontal armor was immense, its top armor was far thinner. American artillery battalions, firing non-stop, could turn the tide. Explosive shells raining down from above could cripple a King Tiger's engine, damage its optics, or shatter its tracks. Even if the shells didn't destroy the tank outright, the constant bombardment slowed the German advance to a crawl, and time was the one thing Hitler's offensive couldn't afford to lose. The relentless shelling forced crews to button up, reducing their visibility and making them easy prey for ambushes. American infantry learned to fight smart, not hard. They knew their bazookas would just bounce off the King Tiger's thick front plate. They adapted. Small bazooka teams would crawl into position, waiting for the perfect moment. They aimed for the sides and rear, where the armor was weaker. A direct hit rarely killed the beast, but it didn't have to. Damaging a track, breaking a suspension wheel, or even knocking off the external fuel tanks was often enough to immobilize the tank. In the freezing cold of the Ardennes, a stalled King Tiger quickly became a dead King Tiger, as crews were often forced to abandon their vehicles. The Americans began turning the battlefield into a graveyard of immobilized heavy armor. One of the most decisive moments came at St. Vith. Here, the U.S. 7th Armored Division held out against overwhelming German pressure for nearly a week. Commanded by General Bruce Clark, they masterfully used the terrain and their mobile forces to delay a far superior enemy. The King Tigers struggled to maneuver through the deep snow and tight city streets. They were designed for long-range combat on open plains, not for the close-quarters fighting of a town. American artillery zeroed in on the trapped tanks, hitting them repeatedly until they were knocked out or abandoned. By holding St. Vith, 7th Armored Division threw the German timetable into chaos and bought precious time for reinforcements to arrive. Near the town of Cloy, an American tank destroyer unit using the agile M18 Hellcat pulled off one of the most daring anti-tank operations of the battle. The Hellcat was fast and lightly armored, a terrible match for a King Tiger in a head-on fight. But its crew knew better. They used shoot and scoot tactics. A Hellcat would pop out from behind cover, fire around at the Tiger's weaker side armor, and then speed away before the German behemoth could even turn its massive turret. They repeated these hit-and-run attacks, slowly chipping away at the enemy. These small, brave actions repeated all along the front, added up to a major strategic victory. The legendary stand of the 101st Airborne at Bastogne became another graveyard for German armor, surrounded and cut off. The paratroopers used the urban environment to their advantage. Bastogne's narrow streets and the dense woods surrounding it completely negated the King Tiger's long-range advantage. Paratroopers armed with bazookas would wait in ambush, letting the huge tanks lumber right into their kill zones. At such close ranges, when a King Tiger turned a corner and exposed its vulnerable side armor, even a bazooka could be lethal. A well-placed shot could penetrate the hull, igniting ammunition and fuel, and turning the mechanical monster into a fiery tomb, while American bravery and tactics played a huge role. The King Tiger had another, more insidious enemy: its own engineering. The tank was a masterpiece of over-engineering, was rushed into production, and its complex transmission and powerful engine were prone to breaking down under the strain. Tracks would snap under the immense pressure of its 70-ton weight. The sheer mass of the tank made even sturdy bridges collapse. German maintenance crews struggled to keep them running in the brutal winter conditions. With no fuel, no spare parts, and no time, crews often had no choice but to abandon and destroy their own priceless machines. An invincible tank is useless if it can't move. For days, thick clouds and heavy snow had grounded Allied aircraft, giving the German tanks free rein. But in late December, the weather finally cleared. Everything changed. Hundreds of P-47 Thunderbolts swarmed the skies over the Ardennes. These fighter bombers, armed with bombs and 5-inch rockets, became dedicated King Tiger hunters. From the air, the tank's weak top armor was completely exposed. Pilots would spot the German columns stuck on the narrow roads and dive in for the kill. Rockets streaked downward, and one after another. The King Tigers exploded, burned, or were abandoned by their terrified crews. Allied air power was the final nail in the coffin for the German offensive. By late December, the German advance had completely stalled. A combination of fuel shortages, constant mechanical failures, fierce American resistance, and the return of Allied air power spelled disaster for Hitler's final gamble. The King Tigers, once symbols of unstoppable force, were now just scattered. Frozen wrecks in the snow, victims of strategy, terrain, and the relentless adaptability of the American soldier. In the end, of the handful of King Tigers committed to the Ardennes, most did not fall in glorious tank-on-tank duels. They fell to mines, to artillery, to breakdowns, to empty fuel tanks, and to the determined GIS, who simply refused to break. The King Tiger remains a legend of armored warfare, a masterpiece of engineering, but also definitive proof that raw power alone cannot win wars. The Americans stopped the King Tigers not because they had better tanks, but because they had better teamwork, superior logistics, and the unyielding determination to hold the line, no matter the cost. In the snowy forests of the Ardennes, the U.S. Army proved a timeless truth. No matter how strong the machine, the will of the soldier fighting, it is always stronger. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this look into military history, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one.